Okay, I'm gonna get started. Everybody go on mute until we call on you or something. You can raise your hand if you want to, and you can write in the chat as well. So our East Bench Community Council is made up of 8 executive board members. So I'm the chair, my name's Amy Burrows. Our first vice chair is Anthony Wright. If you'll wave to everybody, Anthony. Second vice chair is Brooke Carrington. So you wave. Our secretary is Katie Moore. It's Katie. And then we have a treasurer who's Mark Overdevest. Say hi. And we have 3 at-large members of the executive board, which are Diane Rivera, Dennis Ayer, say hey, and Emily Lucht. So thanks to those, the other 7 members of our executive board to do some extra work and keep us on track. Okay.
Maybe my camera wasn't working.
Well, you can wave now. There you go. There's no meeting next month, so our next 3 meetings are on January 20th, February 17th, and March 17th. We will meet at the library again if we can ever do that, but we'll probably keep going with Zoom meetings as well. So we'll do a hybrid meeting plan when we can meet again in person. Let's hear, first of all, let's see if Detective Bishop is here. Somebody see him? Oh, we're at 100 participants. Can anybody else double up? Is Detective Bishop here?
I'm going to leave and double up.
Thank you, Barry. See you in a second.
So typically it's Detective Meinzer, but this is Sergeant Alan Christensen. I'm filling in for Meinzer. He's still off on leave. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. So so I'm just going to go over some of the stats that Nate would have provided. And the East Bench looks actually pretty good right now. Hold on just one second here. Just going into some of the stats, it does appear that the only issues that I see that have gone up over like year after year, it has to do with theft. And so it looks like burglary is up, larceny and theft. We've noticed burglaries up, and a lot of it has to do with COVID because a lot of people are home now and not at work and not where they would normally be. So be very cognizant of that. Theft is up, larceny and theft. And I did notice that, you know, in particular, the East Bench and some of these communities do have like the garages that are open that don't have like the doors on the outside. And I do notice when I'm driving around through the communities that there are a lot of like expensive items, bicycles, things like that that are in the open. And that's mainly what these folks go after, is the easy targets. And so if there's any way to move those expensive items out of the view of the public, hopefully that would bring the thefts down. Let's see, and that looks about it. The other thing is motor vehicle thefts. Obviously around this time, we do always have a spike in motor vehicle thefts, and there's a couple reasons for that. Main reason is when you go out and you start your car and get it all nice and warm in the morning before you go to work. If you're lucky enough that you don't get to have to work from home and you actually do get to drive into work, that's a big target right now, is the cars that are getting warmed up in the driveways. The other thing is most everybody now with the newer cars has the little key fob, and a lot of people are leaving those key fobs in your car because it's more convenient just to go and pull the door handle, hit the button, and away you go. So be very cognizant. Don't leave those things in your car. Don't leave any valuables in your car. And like I say, hopefully by doing that, the thefts and the motor vehicle thefts will actually drop exponentially. So, and that looks about it for stats. Or everything else looks pretty well the same year after year. So, does anybody have any questions with the stats in particular? It's not looking like it. The other big news that I wanted to share with this community is, so the department has decided that due to staffing issues that we've been having, they're actually going to disband certain squads and utilize those bodies into patrol. So that way, I know everybody's been watching the news and seeing that call times are getting higher and things like that. We're hoping by putting more of these specialty squads back into patrol that you'll start seeing those call volumes start dropping, and we actually have more people out there responding to calls and actually getting the help that you guys are needing. So unfortunately, that does include our CIU unit. And so the 7 detectives that I have right now will be going into patrol starting January 10th. So that being said, what they're going to have next is what they call a COP, Community Oriented Policing Unit. And so what it's going to do is it's going to drop down to 3 detectives that'll actually cover, one will be assigned to each division of the department. So you've got the Liberty Division, you've got Central Division, and you've got Pioneer Division. And those 3 COP detectives will handle anything and everything that CIU handled. And they'll be working with the individual bike squads that we have, and to try to, if there's a hot spot within your community, there's a lot of thefts, there's a lot of, we start seeing burglaries come up, things like that. That COP officer will get with their bike squad, and the bike squads will be able to kind of flood those neighborhoods to try to eliminate that problem sooner than later. So it's a big change, and it's going to come soon. So please get any issues that you do have to us in the next month, and we'll try to get to them. And then, like I said, the COP will take over from there starting January 10th. So, and that's all I have for now.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else? Hey, if anyone else can double up, we're at capacity again. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know we had a limit, so I'm sorry. That stinks, but we're recording it, so we'll show this again later. But double up if anybody can. Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. Have a good evening. The next thing we're going to talk about is the mayor's office. And Jamie is our representative from Mayor Mendenhall's office. Jamie's on here. You're welcome to tell your story.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I'll go quick because I know that you guys have a lot to talk about tonight. Just wanted to update you on just 2 or 3 key things. So the first thing is on our homeless outreach that we're doing right now. I've been updating you all on the community commitment program, which is our push to connect those experiencing homelessness with resources, especially those living in encampments before the cold weather really settles in. Last time we spoke, the resource fair at 700 South was occurring, and there were some questions about how many people were taking services and things of that nature. And I will say that 22 individuals were able to get off the streets either in shelters or in some sort of medical program. So that was a big success. And the other thing that we noticed is that a lot of people were interested in the legal options that we had there. So the Salt Lake Justice Court was there and was able to help people resolve warrants. So that was cool, something that we learned. We're also continuing to look for overflow shelter As I've mentioned before, we will not be using that old DI building that we used last year, the Sugar House Temporary Shelter. And the folks who work in our Housing and Neighborhoods Department, along with others from the county, are working to find what we call non-congregate shelter as an overflow for the winter. And non-congregate is basically like a motel or hotel, somewhere where people can go and be kind of distanced from others, as opposed to the dormitory style that we typically see with the resource shelters. We are noticing that people are a little hesitant to take shelter right now due to the dormitory style, which makes sense. So we're looking for other options, including we're going to continue to use motel vouchers. So that's the update on homeless services. Also, the city, our office and the Salt Lake City Library are hosting monthly community conversation. That's what we're calling it, community conversation series. And there's one tomorrow at 7 p.m. It'll be introduced by the mayor, and it's about hate crimes in Utah. And also nationally, the mayor will be talking a little bit about what we're doing to address equity in the city. And then there will be panelists from Southern Poverty Law Center, National Hispanic Media Coalition, the Western State Center, and others. And that's being put together again from the library, our office, and also the United Jewish Federation of Utah. So that should be a good event, and I'll put the link to that in here if you're interested in going. And that's tomorrow at 7. And then the last thing is COVID. As you'll know, the governor has issued an emergency order, and that expires November 23rd, but it could be extended. And that one of the key things in there is basically not having gatherings in your home, keeping things within your own family. And if you're interested, there's a lot of information on Salt Lake County Health Department's website, giving advice about the holidays and other things that you can do if you are planning to get together. There is really no way of guaranteeing that it will be 100% safe if you're doing it with people outside of your household. So if you are planning on a get-together, I'd really recommend reading some of these suggestions and reading what the county health department has to say about that. So that's all that I have. I'll let you get to your other meeting business unless there are any questions.
Any questions for the mayor by Jamie? Jamie's always really good to send me all the stuff she talks about so we can send it out with our minutes so you can follow up on any of the things that were of particular interest. So, okay. Well, thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, do you want me to hop off so some more people can get on, or?
If you would, somebody else will take your place.
And then just
if we have a message for the mayor, I'll tell you what it is, okay, Jamie, and you can share it with her.
Yeah, or send me the recording. It's nice to see all of you guys, and I'll hop off.
Nice to see you.
See
you in January.
Thanks, Jamie. Will you send that link before you hop off, Jamie?
Oh yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy,
Hi, Jamie.
I don't think that Mark is here, so I'll reserve a spot for him. If someone's in touch with him, it would Mark Isaac. It might be nice to have him on
Hi,
here.
Brookie, I'm here. I'm watching.
He's
watching
here.
it.
He's here.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, so that's the next, well, let's see. Have we talked about everything? Is this the next thing on our agenda?
Councilman Dugan is next.
Okay, you're up.
So good evening, Councilmember Dugan here. Just a quick things because we have a lot to discuss on the Lamplighter. Just piggybacking on what Jamie was talking about, we also approved last night the City Council budget meeting, City Council meeting, an amendment to increase the City Ambassador program, which is a program that's used downtown where we have individuals that kind of work with the homeless, work with the different city issues, and so they can squelch some problems, get resources to the homeless people, the people that are in need, and working with the small businesses, and they kind of support the police in that, and kind of like taking away some of the pressure from the police having to respond to this stuff. And they're out in the streets all the time. We've expanded it west to the Rio Grande area and north up to North Temple. So that helps out the city quite a bit and helps out the police in quieting some small issues that could get more tense if they weren't there. And they're a big help to the downtown neighborhoods. We also approved a demolition ordinance. It really doesn't affect us much in this district because we don't have many nuisance properties as others do. We do have one on 13th East, and we're looking at that one at this time. But really, I don't want to take any more time up. If you have any questions, you have my email. Feel free to send me a note, give me a call. I'm always available if you need me. I really want to turn the time over to Amy and the discussion on Lamplighter. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, Dan sends out, is it weekly? He sends out a newsletter, might be weekly, might be every other week, once a month, I don't know. If you're interested in that, I'll include the link so you can sign up for his newsletter so you'll get it in your email box. Because he talks about
anything, yep, please do, thanks.
Okay. So now our next order of business, I had on the first agenda that we were going to talk about neighborhood trees, and we are going to because it's really important, but we're not going to do that tonight. So come back later and we'll tell you all of the information there is about trees. Right now we're going to talk about Skyline Inn and Lamplighter Square, and we've talked about this for years and years and years because it's been in progress for a long time, and we're really excited to have something great go in there. The plan we're going to hear about tonight is, this is the first time that a lot of you may have heard of this plan because it's different than it was. So we have Mark. Do you want to head it up for your group?
Yes, Amy, thank you. I think that's probably the best way to go. Will one of you be kind of operating a site plan and renderings for me while I do this? Or how would you propose that we go about it?
Yeah, I can do that. So I have, it's just what you sent me the other day, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and I included that with the agenda today, so you guys can, so yeah, Mark, I'll do that.
Perfect. And while we're doing that, first off, my name's Mark Isaac. I am the owner's representative and will be involved in the delivery for the owners group of the Lamplighter Square redevelopment and changes to Lamplighter Square. I'm a land use planner by education and trade, worked for the city as a planner for a long time, was in economic development. My planner friend said I went to the dark side in 1997. I've been working in the private sector in land development since 1997-98. We're pretty good at this. We're really excited about this location for all the obvious reasons. We know it's sensitive to a lot of people. We know that it's very prevalent location, very visible location, and subsequently we're trying to do the right thing and be really mindful through the planning process. To the East Bench Community Council, thank you for doing this. The public process in planning is incredibly important. Sometimes I rue the day for saying that because I'm the first to get tarred and feathered. But truth be told, we all need it in our community. We need this process to be heard. We need to understand the community's concerns and the community's wishes with regards to use and makeup and the like. And we're sensitive to that. So I saw that there's a full calendar of 100+ people on here. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Let's walk through the process a little bit. A few years back, the ownership group bought the Skyline Motel as an addition to their purchase of Lamplighter. As many of you who have lived in that area for a long time can attest, it was a troubled location. It had 6 or 7 police calls a week. We had issues with drugs, issues with drug paraphernalia on sidewalks, prostitution, and I can assure you that the ownership paid handsomely for the real estate to remove previous ownership and to clean it up. We pay full-time security, monitoring multiple times a day, and we gave it a fresh coat of paint and some carpet and allowed for a lot of the people that were originally renting for a day or 2 or 3 or a week to rent at a month at a time if it helped them. We understand the sensitivity to this location. We understand the sensitivity to the use, and we're looking to make changes here. We've had somebody on the community council call and file a complaint that it's a non-conforming use and ask for it to be shuttered immediately. We've received that notification from the city, and we're going to be mindful in how we address this request. But I can assure you that none of us on the ownership side deem it appropriate time to throw 20 people out of a residential setting at Thanksgiving and Christmas and into the cold conditions when some of them can't afford much. So we are going to work quickly and efficiently to try and find them new locations. But we were taken aback after our board meeting last Monday that someone filed a complaint from the East Bench Community Council and has asked that it be shuttered immediately. I don't know if that's in good keeping with the mayor's office and message that we just heard a few minutes ago in trying to help homeless and trying to help
Hey,
housing.
Mark,
Yeah.
let me interject real quick. So we, Mark and then one of the owners of this group met with the executive board, well, like this meeting. We talked about it. We talked about the conditions there, but East Bench Community Council did not take any kind of official position on it. The board, Community Council did not report you to whoever you were reported to. So
And listen, it
just
wasn't.
saying, I don't want people to have to live out there right now either. But so
Well,
East Bench
listen,
Community Council didn't do that.
let me just
Somebody
say to
did,
the
but
community at large and everybody that's out there, we are doing our very best. We're going to make sure that that is not a problem for the community. We're going to try and find these people a new location. A lot of this circumstances is associated with our ask tonight and our original presentation for support for the rezone. Half of this area is CN, neighborhood commercial. Part of the Lamplighter is CB, which is community business and allows for multifamily. So that's part of the ask tonight. I just wanted everybody to know that we care so much about this area. We care about these residents. We're going to try and remedy it, but just please be sensitive to the fact that we're going to work as quickly as we can. Message received, Amy. I just wanted that to be out there because it kind of caught us off guard. We've also had someone in the community call and suggest that the DABC is not welcome on Lamplighter anymore. For many of you that have lived in the neighborhood for a long time, the DABC, the State Liquor Commission, the liquor store has been a part of this community and the fabric of Lamplighter since December 1st, 1982. It's 2 weeks short of 38 years being a member of our community and, quite frankly, a well-regarded member of our community. Originally, there was a lot of people in the community excited that we were going to make some changes, upgrades, expansion, and improvements to the liquor store. And the liquor store has received calls this week suggesting that they're not welcome in our community. These are the kinds of things that we think are the exact opposite that is the East Bench area. We are a very educated, very mobile, effective, passionate group of residents in this area. And these few things that tripped us up this week set us back a little bit. So let's get into site planning and talk about what we're proposing here. And it'll give everybody an opportunity to see how we're trying to think this through. And perhaps we can hit something that the community is supportive of and that people are appreciative of the effort. I'll just kind of let you get into the scrolling of it. And Amy, thank you for doing this. It makes it a little easier on me. So if you just scroll up the one screen, if you can, or one slide, we'll get to the site plan and we'll leave it there. This is an aerial. It's an overlay of our site plan of existing conditions. For those of you that don't look at two-dimensional maps very often, the easy part is the car wash on the hard corner with the red roof, and our site kind of surrounds it. So it just kind of gives a sense of place and the sensitivity to the fact that we are in the middle of a single-family residential area and a pretty busy thoroughfare that is Foothill Boulevard. Next slide for us, Amy. So the idea here This is the layout and the circulation. Let me talk about circulation while you're all looking at the map for a minute. It's important to understand that with the two curb cuts that are the car wash, and the car wash is not a part of our project and the part of the application, but those two curb cuts that sit on the hard corner, and then with the curb cut that is the existing Girls on the Run, and then there's a driveway location and a curb cut that for most of us, we would go in and access the liquor store, the salon, the services, and Taqueria 27 in the main shopping center. And that's sort of the main drag that we're showing here. And then there's two more curb cuts further north that are associated with and service the service station or the gas station in its current configuration. So the math is there's 5 or 6 driveways within a couple hundred linear feet of Foothill Boulevard. As I'm sure every single one of you on this call tonight understands, DOT and city transportation are looking at ways to improve servicing along Foothill Drive. They were talking about the idea of, you know, limited access and lanes. And I think a lot of you were associated with all that dialogue that happened last year. Subsequent to all that work, DOT and the City Transportation Division is looking at making improvements to 1700 South and Foothill Drive intersection. The improvements as they currently stand are turn signal cues, extending service light, green light service, 17th South, east-west across Foothill, which for most of us that live in this area will be a huge benefit because you don't have much time and it's a long time between them. They're looking at improving the flow through improvements in lights, turn lanes, turn cues, and extension of some of that. We don't know where they're at with the studies or how soon any of this work is going to occur, but in dialogue with DOT and with the city, the changes to Lamplighter will eliminate the grandfathering of all the access points. And so 6 or 7 points in a few hundred linear feet will not continue to be supported. DOT has gone so far as to suggest there will be no left turn movements or southbound out of Taqueria 27 or the liquor store and the main entrance, southbound or left turn, Monday through Friday between 4 and 7 p.m. when peak travel southbound is coming out of the university in the downtown core. And for all of you that live up there, you understand the logic of that. It's a safety issue. It's trying to queue into stacked traffic that's southbound. So they're having real issues with it. They're contemplating an island in the middle of Foothill Drive. This is dialogue. I don't know if it's going to come to be or not. This is communication that they've had with us. And force movement of Lamplighter right in, right out at certain times a day, which is difficult for all of us that live in the neighborhood. If we're going to Taqueria 27, if we're going into the hair salon or the other services that are there, and obviously the DABC has a fairly consistent traffic flow through it. With all that in mind and the circulation, we looked at ways to tie into 1700 South. I know there's a bunch of people up there panic-stricken about the idea of tying into 1700. We understand it, but people aren't going to go out onto 17th, turn left and go east up the hill unless they live there. It serves no purpose to do so. So what we're looking to do is we have not purchased, Amy, just for clarity for the community council and others, we have the home under contract that's directly east of the Skyline Motel. We have not closed on that yet. We're contemplating that. Our idea is if we can access circulation on the high side or the east side of this project south onto 1700 South, it provides an opportunity for everybody that lives east of Foothill Drive to go to a coffee shop, banks, salons, services, Taqueria 27, the liquor store, and other things as a pedestrian with a stroller, with the dog, with the family, with the friend. or in their car and not have to maneuver in and off of Foothill Drive to enter into the services that we're proposing for this site. So in layman's terms, that's the best way I could describe to you all our thought process with circulation and the whys. It allows
Hey,
for a
Mark.
safer mechanism to leave Lamplighter and get to the light and go directly westbound. There's a lot of people that come out of Lamplighter, Talk 27, the liquor store, dive across Foothill, move through 2 lanes, get into the right turn pocket and make a quick right onto 1700 South westbound. And I know you've all seen it. If you live here, it's prevalent, and it's an unsafe circumstance that DOT and city's concerned with. So the idea is, if we connect to 1700, it gives an alternative route where people can get to the light safely. If UDOT restricts our flow circulation to right in, right out only, Monday through Friday, peak demand, 4 to 7 o'clock, it gives people an alternative. And then the other side of it is everybody that lives up on the East Bench side doesn't have to maneuver onto Foothill to get into Lamplighter and backwards to get home that wants to frequent the center. So that's a bit of the idea of circulation. You'll notice on the northwest corner of our project, Amy, we have a coffee shop shown there. Our intention is to do a drive-through and a coffee, but you'll notice we've moved it up off the drag. The idea is we have a very large queuing area, and we can accommodate drive-through coffee, service and amenity that so many of us use, but it's a real bugaboo with stacking traffic. The idea is if we get it as far away from Foothill and the main drag circulation, we can queue cars without adversely affecting the rest of the center. So that's the idea behind that. You'll notice on the northeast corner, or the top right corner, is the liquor store parcel. They have dedicated stalls. They have their dedicated parking field. The state owns that parcel. They are partnering with us in this capacity. We are trying to create good circulation that the community supports, nice landscape, nice tree-lined pedestrian access. You'll notice that there's a sidewalk in off of 17th, the entire length into the center.
Hey, Mark, is
Yes.
there an opportunity for people to actually ask questions? Because we have quite a few questions coming in the chat, and I don't feel like they're actually being seen.
Hey, well, who's talking right now?
This is Craig Scoggins.
Okay, well, we're gonna let him talk for a little bit more, and we'll address the questions when they come up, okay?
And you
Okay.
know what I like?
There
yeah,
is-
just
Mark,
give me a
there is
couple more
something I
minutes.
want to interject real quick. The part right here in this corner, can you guys see my little arrow right there? Right there is a home, because the Skyline Inn is right here, and then there's a home right here, which is a single family home. And across the street from that is a single family home. So they're under contract to buy a piece of property that's zoned for residential, as in like one home.
We understand that.
to
I
be
think
cleared
one of the biggest questions besides traffic is, let's talk about the 5-story building. People come up here to pay for views.
Hey, Craig,
They pay a lot of
are
money.
you talking still?
Yes.
Okay,
I am
well,
still talking.
let me run the meeting, okay, Craig, and
Okay.
we'll get to all of this. We have a lot of stuff to say, but we have a lot of time too, so let's let
Okay.
him go through it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I think you understand the circulation, the idea behind the programmatic plan for layout, why we've gone this route. The liquor store is an independent entity. They own the parcel. They're going to build their new liquor store there. And they've been very accommodating in trying to find ways to fit the architecture, the landscaping, the parking field, and the like to better accommodate a solid, cohesive land use plan. So as far as whoever called the liquor store and said they weren't welcome here, quite frankly, we're very excited that they're here and they're a part of it, and they're going to do a great investment. And we are providing more parking than they've ever had there, both for them and then overflow for us that we'll get into in the next slides. I know there's a tremendous amount of dialogue with regards to residential. The best way for me to walk through it is to go into the renderings and talk about it. I'll stop there, and then we can start to field questions from the community council and then obviously the residents as a whole. Does that sound okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Amy, why don't you go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit about this. We didn't mention the salon, a lot of the tenants that are existing in Taqueria 27. The idea here is what you're looking at on the bottom left-hand side of your slide is a larger Taqueria 27 with a large ground floor restaurant, upstairs event center, fire pits, outdoor dining, and what would be an expansion of use as a bit of a Taqueria 27 themed bar. The idea is to build a larger, more accommodating setting for Taqueria 27. The idea is keeping them down on Foothill, and then all the parking that's associated for the retail is underneath this building. And why that matters is it's incredibly expensive to develop, but it's safe, it's ADA accessible, which the center isn't as it currently stands, and we can provide a lot more guest parking for the restaurants, the salons, the services that are on the retail. The residential idea is 3 stories of residential on top of a 2-story retail component, and then you can see that there's a upper deck, an amenity deck that overlooks the southwest corner of our valley. You can pick up the sense and the sense of place for that and the visibility for it. So it's ground floor retail, and then if you go to the next slide, I'll continue to walk you through it. And then this is your main entrance. You would come off of Foothill. We eliminate from 4 to 2 entry points into Lamplighter. You can see the liquor store up in the configuration. It's tucked a little more north, a little more into the left side of the center, and is not up on the high side. And then there's a little bit more level grading to accommodate less slope. And then as you drive around this corner, we'll go to the next slide, you'll see the ground floor retail that associates all along the frontage that gets up to the liquor store. That's the 2-story ground floor retail. The salon wants to come back. We're trying to keep as many of the fabric of the community that's been there for a long time, and subsequently we're accommodating that. The positive with this, and I understand that there's concerns about some things, we'll get to it. We are not creating surface parking stalls whatsoever for all the retail circumstances. I don't know about you, but I've never been to a place that parking lots create a sense of place, a pedestrian-friendly environment, or safe pedestrian circumstance, and quite frankly, it's just not good use of land. So the idea is you would drive up, and where you'll see in the middle of the building, there's a retail sign up high adjacent to the right side of the liquor store, and that's your parking structure entrance for all the retail parking. Next slide. And this is just a bit more of a close-up showing the sense of place. There will be a landscape area between the liquor store parcel and the rest of the center, and it's a bit of a respite in an area that as you head towards the coffee shop and the area for people that walk down with their families or with dogs or whatever the case may be, trying to make it a little bit more inviting than its, you know, tired old 60 or 70-year layout. Next slide. This is the back side of the apartments viewed from the high side of the residences above. It's dropped well below the current circumstance that is the apartments that are there now and the motel. The grading dropped significantly. We've pushed it as far forward as we can get it to accommodate pedestrian connectivity and that road or circulation to 1700 South. And then we haven't provided a wing or units off of that northeast flank of the building whatsoever to continue to allow for the natural light, sunlight, sunsets, and the like for the residents that go up above the hill. Next slide, please. And then this is the entrance off of 1700 South. This is the leasing center. And you'll notice just to the right of the leasing center, there's a parking sign, and that's your ingress, egress, and your entrance into the parking structure for the residential units. The residential have designated parking inside the building, as do the retail visitors. and parking and servicing for the restaurants. I don't know if we've got another slide. I don't know about this package, Amy. Yeah, and then this just shows that streetscape. We're looking south towards 1700 South and the area that would accommodate the residential parking, and the residential parking can enter off of that main drag by the liquor store as well.
Mark, is there a pool in this amenities center or a hot tub, or is there something like that?
It's a garden area. We've been contemplating programming pools and hot tubs. The difficulty with some of that stuff, Amy, is it tends to be a gathering place and loud, frankly. Yeah. and we're a little nervous about that circumstance. We think with a nice fitness center, green space, fire pits, and barbecue center and the stuff with that upper floor amenity on the other side, we think that we could accommodate the right kind of amenity package that people that would be paying this price point would want to have in their facility.
So are we saying no pool or to be determined?
To be determined. I don't think there will be a pool. It's an awfully expensive amenity. What it does is it actually adversely affects the floor below for all the obvious reasons, and that's into our parking structure and circulation for vehicles. So I don't think that's, I just don't think it's going to occur.
And the parking for residents is separate from the parking for retail, the restaurant, the coffee shop, or is it the same?
Correct.
Different, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm watching these questions scroll through, and
okay.
What I'll do, Amy, is I'll stay and respond to a bunch of them via communication and email while we're talking other parts, because I don't want them to think that they're not being heard. I'm just seeing them scroll through so fast I couldn't respond.
Right, right. So, Mark, let's talk really quick. Tell us about the affordable units, or like how much the rents are.
Well, our idea is to do a number of units, and what we thought we would do, and the right thing to do, is to accommodate something similar to what's there now in the 20 units of Skyline. And they'd be an 80% AMI. 80% AMI is your average median income in Salt Lake City. I think the average median income at a 80% AMI is, if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere in the $1,600 or $1,400 range. So it's still expensive. What we thought we would do is do some kind of smaller micro unit type thing where you didn't have to lease so much square footage, and it would be a little bit more accommodating. Our idea is simply this: we're doing projects where we're trying to provide some essential housing throughout Salt Lake City. I know that we're East Bench and we have this image about us, but we also know that there's essential housing needed for nurses and teachers and firefighters and police and the like, who can't afford a lot of market rate stuff on the East Bench, yet every one of us that lives here requires them to service us and provide for us. And so it's our approach is to provide a small element of it in essential housing. The rest of it's going to be a higher level rent. Amy, it'll probably push the envelope of rent rates on the Wasatch Front, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because of the circumstance.
Does the parking, do you have enough parking for every unit? Is that a separate thing that they can buy, or do they have to buy it? Is it assigned for units?
We did not program in pro forma. That we're so early into this. We need the blessing of the city and the community and a whole host of matters. We don't intend to charge for parking. We have more parking than traditionally is provided in multifamily units along the Wasatch Front in Salt Lake City on a percentage basis. We have overflow that the liquor store can use during the holidays. As most of you know that have frequented the area, between next week and Christmas time is a very busy time for DABC. And we've provided extra overflow in our building for retail, for the restaurants. Our parking stall count is sufficient for this type of project and for the neighborhood. We're really, really concerned about any overflow parking in the neighborhood whatsoever. And we're trying to avoid that.
Do you know how many stalls you have?
You know, if I can find this other matrix here, I'll be able to tell.
Find that and tell me the exact. Let's do something real quick since we have 100 participants. Brooke,
Yep.
can you start a poll? We're going to do a quick poll before that you can just do online. You just click on the poll. Brooke, will you launch it? So we're going to say our first question, number 1, is, are you opposed to rezoning this area? If you
Can you repeat it again?
Amy, clarify your question.
I'm typing it in the chat too. Are you opposed to rezoning the Lamplighter Square property? So right now, it doesn't allow multifamily housing any more than, I think, the 18 units that exist right now. That's my understanding. It has to be community business or.
Well,
what's
the
other?
CB zone, half of the center is CB zone, and that does allow for multifamily, Amy?
Okay, if at any density?
Well, you've got to go through the planning process and the community, entitlement process, but you can build multifamily in CB.
So if you're completely opposed to rezoning, and everybody understand, this is not the official public input procedure that will happen with rezoning. This is just a neighborhood conversation. So this isn't any kind of official vote, but go ahead and vote in that poll. Does everybody see it?
Yes, I'd like a maybe option, but I don't
And
have
Go ahead and say, go ahead and just say, there's,
Amy, while you're doing that, we've got 269 spaces programmed into the project.
okay, for 135 units. Does that include, is that residential parking places or for the retail too?
That's the entirety of the project. 48 spaces are specific to DABC and on their property for the liquor store.
Okay.
And then we have 221 spaces in the building.
Okay.
Which is a shared parking model, 102, 60, and 59 on the 3 levels. So with 135 units, if you had dedicated stalls, then we still have roughly 86 to 90 visitor stalls for retail, which is a lot of parking for what we're going to have up there in retail circumstance.
Okay. Is the poll still open? Is anyone watching this poll happen? Brooke, can you see it?
It is still open. It's been open for 2 minutes and 22 seconds, and 67% have voted.
Okay. Everybody click on that vote.
Someone's got a question.
Yeah, I had to call in due to the high volume, so I'm unable to vote, but I'm very interested in completing any surveys for this project. To follow up with an email.
So maybe in the minutes we can accommodate that somehow.
Yeah. Hey, Barbara, why don't you unmute yourself and you can talk.
Thank you. All right, part of this is scripted. Our neighborhood is besieged by traffic, noise, vagrants, crime, garbage, light pollution. We've been utterly consistent with our message. We oppose rezoning this. We've opposed it in 1990, in the 2000s, in the 2010s, and now again in 2020. The developers demonstrate gross disregard for this East Bench neighborhood when they propose an apartment building of that size. We have view lots, and we already have an apartment building from Stringham clear over to Sunnyside. That apartment building on the corner of Skyline and Foothill is a disaster for our street. We want a friendly, low-density community center. We want to eat at a local restaurant. We want to get a haircut. We want to go to the yoga studio. I have shared a boundary with the liquor store for 32 years. I do not have a problem with the liquor store. I have a problem if they increase their hours till 10 p.m. That would bother me. Right now, the liquor store has been a pretty good neighbor, so I'd have to see what they have planned for the liquor store, how high it's going to be, and what their hours are going to be. So I I am opposed to rezoning. Just work with the existing community neighborhood, which is what it was when you purchased the property. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara. Somebody else raised their hand to me in the chat.
I did, Craig.
Adam, do you want to introduce yourself and say something?
Well, this is Craig. Adam's my husband. So this is Craig Scoggins. I think Barbara pretty much spoke for what I was going to say. Thank you for that, Barbara.
Thank you.
This is absurd with the amount of traffic that we're going to have here with this unit. I mean, I don't feel like there was any thought whatsoever put in place for any of the community or housing or residents in this area whatsoever. We were under the impression that we would have like it cleaned up, have a better liquor store, maybe some restaurants, T27 and things like that, which I'm all in favor of. But 135 unit, people move up here to have views. They pay a lot of money for this. They also don't want to deal with any more traffic. Anyone coming home from downtown when we go back to regular life knows what it's like coming on Foothill. This is not okay. You know, and the thing is on top of that, we're talking about affordable housing. I've lived in areas with that. I think it's a great opportunity for people. I needed it when I was a lot younger, but not in this neighborhood. So again, thank you, Barbara, for your comments. I appreciate it. You hit the nail on the head in my mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Amy, I was hoping I could say something as well.
Philip, go ahead. Your turn. Introduce yourself and tell us your piece.
Yeah, real quick. But I mean, just looking at the plan, and to say it's tone deaf is an understatement. It looks like it's going into Las Vegas Strip. It's a 2-story tacky, ugly restaurant with this massive apartment building. It's just absolutely insane. And I think it's been pointed out a little bit. There was an original plan some years ago, and when we looked at the plan from several years ago, you look at it and you say, hey, that looks great. That would improve the neighborhood. It's like an upgraded version of Lamplighter Square. And then they bring this plan in with this massive apartment building. You know how everyone knows how those apartment buildings are. The traffic is one thing. The apartment building itself is the real problem. You have hundreds of units, high turnover, young people, loud parties. And it's just, I mean, to say it's tone deaf is, it's unbelievable, actually, is what it is. So that's my opinion. And I think a lot of people are agreeing with that. But anyway, I just wanted to chime in and voice that.
Everybody mute yourself who isn't talking right now. Mark, can you address the issue of the views? Like, how much taller will this building be than the existing buildings? And are you going to have like a special exception to build it as tall as you want to?
Well, it's not a special exception. It's called conditional building and site design review. You have to go through the city process, planning commission, planning staff. We were planning on doing a drone survey that takes photos of the locations to demonstrate the height of the building at build out so that we could better show the community the height of it. We haven't done that study yet. Obviously, that's a big part of the process with planning. This is our opening salvo and our introduction to the community, and we're starting to get a bunch of feedback.
Yeah, so Mark, what are your next steps? What are you going to do?
Well, I'll talk with the ownership group and decide the direction they want to go. Listen, we have so much interest and inquiry in people that want to be in the center, retailers, gas station. We've been approached by Maverick, we've been approached by Shell, and we've been approached by Come and Go of all people, because they're coming to the state of Utah to take over the service station. We've been approached by Chick-fil-A. We'll go back and take a look at alternatives and options. What we want to do is something that's accepted by the community. I don't know the direction that they'll take ultimately. This was our first attempt at what we thought was a nice approach to things, but obviously we've got some work to do.
Okay, Lynn Taylor, I think you were going to say something.
Oh,
And sorry if that's not really your name, it just is what it says on the screen.
It is,
So.
my husband's here too. Maybe he was going. I have a lot.
I
to say.
said it, but Chick-fil-A really upgrades the community. I have to compliment.
Oh
them on
yeah,
that.
that's really a good thing we want here.
No.
We
Please
like how
understand,
we like. No, wait a minute, Mark. At least look at what you're going to do to the houses behind you. You're 4 stories high, and maybe some of it's buried. I mean, you're going to really foul up their view, but I know you don't care. Did you want to say something?
No, I'll just try to control myself.
We are adamantly opposed to you. You're going to increase the traffic on 17th.
That is a
it's
huge,
going to be crazy.
Huge, that's a huge complex. A lot of people to funnel in to a small, really localized neighborhood. I don't know how big that piece of property is, but that's incredibly.
And look what you're going to do to Foothill Drive. People are going to go along Foothill Drive to get to the liquor store.
No,
and down.
You mean Wasatch?
No, I mean Wasatch.
Well, Foothill is
Wasatch
already a
Drive.
mess. Foothill Drive is just total traffic.
I meant Wasatch.
Yeah.
They're going to come along Wasatch down to 17th into the liquor store. And that is not, that's for biking, people walking. It isn't for a major thoroughfare.
That's a highly recreational road. It connects to the Bonneville Trail. It's a connection point for bikers and runners. It could be very dangerous to already the traffic from the university. My big campaign lately has I've been wanting to get that 17th East calmed down. Some kind of there's speed bumps that they do nothing, and that's a very dangerous area if you're biking or if you're on foot.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Taylors, for your input. I want us to
Thank you.
I want us to consider one thing, a couple of things really quickly, is that somebody owns this property, and when it's owned by somebody, they have a lot of leverage to choose what to do. Now that they have to match the regulations that exist, and if they're asking for rezoning, then that's a little bit of a different issue. But these guys are going to invest in this neighborhood, and a new wine store is it genuinely will be great. I don't know who said it wasn't welcome, but that's not the general response we've had from this community. I think it sounds like from the comments that a lot of the problem that people are having is that 135 residential units sounds like a lot, considering that there are 18 there right now. A 7-fold increase is pretty huge. I think that sounds like what a lot of the problems, if I can distill the chat down. So I'm going to have Ricardo wants to speak. So Ricardo, unmute yourself and you talk, and then hold on. Let me tell you who's next after Ricardo. Let's see. Ricardo, and then Ashley Peck. You're after him, and then we'll have the Williams.
Awesome.
Does that work? Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Amy. So Ricardo and Maggie here. We live down the street. We actually live right across from the house that would be sold and rezoned. So I think probably one of the biggest losers is in this whole situation. But I think as a community, we're losing a little bit more of a sense of having kind of a community and neighbors in a neighborhood by putting up a 5-story building with through traffic access to already an extremely busy street. We live down here and see it every day. The parking's pretty bad already, considering there's usually accidents as well every, 6 to 8 weeks at the intersection.
There was one last week.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel like the right idea. Totally open, being pretty much a neighbor to whatever's going in, to being open to redevelopment and improvements that make sense and are in line with what's here in the community now. But the thought of personally property loss, can my daughter play in our street out front, having cars just streaming out of the center, just some of our concerns. And I think this isn't a good deal for us as a family here, but for us as a community either. So.
Thank you, Ricardo. Ashley?
Yeah, Amy, I just wanted to echo your point about the impact and the number of units. We live on 17th. We've been here for going on 10 years and have lived through Skyline, and we're really supportive of the acquisition of this property and a long-term development. And a lot of the aspects of this development are really positive. And one of the earlier iterations of this project, I think we were much more supportive of it, is the number of units and the number of people and the number of cars. I wonder from Mark what other alternative options have been considered. For instance, 2 stories of residential, larger units, so there would be less cars, less people. I think that's something that you would get more support from this neighborhood for, and be able to move forward with the project if you could lessen the impact. And I also want to emphasize with the rezone, we're talking about a rezone of a residential house at the bottom of the street from residential to commercial, and encroachment up 17th South of commercial property. So that's a big deal. We're talking about leveling a residential house and commercial development closer to all of us that are on 17th South. That's all I say.
Thanks, Ashley. Do we have Ms. Williams wants to speak? And then we'll have Meg, you'll be after her, and then MS Nats, SLC, whoever you are. You can talk after that too.
I think to say that no one is going to turn east onto 17th South off of this is proof that you don't live in the neighborhood. People turn east onto 17th South, they turn east onto Skyline, they turn east onto Kensington, they go up to Wasatch, even though it says don't use Wasatch, and they do it all the time. They will do it more when they have such easy access off of this property, and I've lost my mind because it's such a large number, 135 units. That is appalling to put in this neighborhood. And to say that you're putting it in there because the hospital needs nurses, places for nurses to live, I might just cry about this. I am a nurse, and that's an appalling way to present this. It's manipulative to the neighborhood. I love the idea of providing places for people who stay at the hospital and work at the hospital. You don't need 135 units for that, nor do you need high-end rental spaces. And I don't actually think that 2-level Taqueria 27 thing is tacky. I think it doesn't belong in this neighborhood. We live in this neighborhood and we want local buildings, local customers to be there. And I think that to consider making it such a grand thing is not in keeping with the neighborhood.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
That was great.
Meg. You're up, Meg.
Oh, can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I've come to these meetings for many years, and when they first started talking about this, I thought this would be great. You know, Lamplighter Square really needs probably a makeover. Parking's been a problem, et cetera, et cetera. And the other plans where they were going to turn the motel into a pharmacy and all these other things seemed, you know, doable to a certain extent, but I just can't get behind this rezoning and this giant apartment building. And the traffic on 1700 South is way too busy right now. And I understand the people who live there. This is supposed to be a single family street. And then you've got all these people parking there halfway up who go and work at the car wash and these other places. And it's just really ruining a whole area. And if this thing gets built, I just think it would not be in keeping or fair to anybody in the area. And my questions are, does the city council have to vote on any part of this eventually? And when will what are the next steps? But I'd like to know what the city council vote, what they can say or do, and what Dan Dugan's take on this is, because I'm pretty sure we'd like to know. Thank you for your time.
Mark, if you know that, if you know what the process is for rezoning or all of that construction permits and all that kind of stuff, let us know.
Yeah, I do. Actually, I'm well versed in it. I've been doing it my whole life. The premise is each city council district has a community council. The only one that has a land use committee is Sugar House because of the size of it and because of the scale of what's occurring in Sugar House. But each of the community councils are part of the process where you present your plan or your intent, especially if it's a rezone, a change of use. If we stay within the guises of what the zone allows there, we can build whatever we want that the zone allows. you know, with obvious site plan approval, and you still got to go through the government entities and work through the process. To answer the lady who just spoke a moment ago, and I was writing some notes, so I didn't catch your name, forgive me. Yes, what would happen is we present to the community council, we get comments from the community council, we incorporate comments from the community council into plans design, then we start preliminary submittals with the city. It goes into staff level approval first, then it goes to planning commission. Because this is a rezone, it would ultimately go to city council. And yes, the city council has to vote on it. So reverse the whole conversation tonight and suggest that everybody's in support of our project and we're going for a rezone. The city council still has to vote on it. They're the ultimate stop. They are elected officials that have the ultimate say in land use planning and land use programming in our community. So for all of your benefit, there's multiple levels of process and procedure we're still required to go through. If it's a rezone, it's city council. Anything that's on the CB section of the middle of our project and the CN zone that's on the bookends. For those of you that aren't familiar, there's two different zones on the parcel. The north parcel, that's the service station, Taqueria 27, the salon, the barbershop, the yoga studio, and up to that fitness center and the old reception hall, that is CN zoned, community neighborhood. The middle section, the Girls on the Run, the existing 18 apartments, and that area and part of the liquor store is CB zoned. And then on the south side of that parcel where the Skyline Motel property starts, it's back to CN zone. So in essence, we have three zones. Two of them are the same, but it's cut into three slices. So we can build multifamily in the CB zone and is allowed per zoning in the middle, and we wouldn't be required to go to city council for a rezone. We cannot build multifamily in the CN zone, which is the north side and the south side, but we can put like similar services that exist there now, and that's planning staff, planning commission, and then we proceed with site plan and construction. The only time we're kicked into city council is a rezone request. I hope that was, I was trying to be as clear as I could.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I think that somebody asked for Dan to comment, and I'm actually not, I'm going to let Dan off the hook on commenting. If this is something he has to vote on later, I don't know if it would be a conflict. We're maybe going to let him off the hook, but if you want to say something, go ahead, Dan.
Just make one comment. So with the rezoning, like Mark said, with the rezoning, it goes to planning. Planning reviews it. They go through all the books. Then they make a recommendation to the city council. Then there's a period in there where it goes back to public comment, and I think it's a 45-day period where we have a bunch of comments and we absorb all the comments, just like we're absorbing the comments now. And also in that time frame, we have public hearings where we have a public hearing where we're saying, hey, we're going to do this, and the public again is going to talk. If you've been at any of our city council meetings in the last 9 months, we've had multiple meetings that go till midnight where we have multiple people making comments for hours on end on different topics. So we hear those, and then at some point we make a decision, and the seven city council makes the decision, and it takes 4 votes to pass it or 4 votes to not pass it on any decision. So that's the process. But right now, this process, they haven't even provided their plan to the city planners. So they're still in that process. And so the city council is not going to see it for a while. I'm here tonight and I'm just a fly on the wall. I'm just absorbing everything right at this time. So I appreciate everybody's comments and I'm just absorbing them all. So, and thank you very much for the discussion.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, so our next people to speak are MS Nats, and then Brooke, and then Big Chungus. Probably shouldn't have said that. And then Dustin. So next up is MS Nats, if you want to say your piece.
Hi, I'm Natalie Moldover. I'm here with my husband, Barry Moldover. We have been in the neighborhood for 15 years. And my concern is This project is going to be approved or not approved, I'm reviewed at the Salt Lake City Community Council. This neighborhood and the 100 some odd people that are on this call are directly impacted by this project. So my question is, how weighted is the view of the East Bench Community Council and the majority sentiment that's being heard here as it relates to this project? I don't know who can best answer that, if that's
Brooke,
Community Council or who.
Brooke, can you give the results of the poll where we asked, are you in favor of rezoning this
So
project?
we had
No, it was in favor of opposing, right?
No. Are you?
The question was, are you opposed to the rezone?
Okay, are you opposed to rezoning? Right.
So opposed to rezoning, we had 73 who voted and 1 came in later. 56 for yes and 17 for no. So that's 77% who who voted yes. So it means they are opposed to the rezone.
Okay. Katie, I hope you got that. Write that down. Mark, is this your official like outreach to the community, this meeting right here?
Well, it's the start, Amy.
Okay.
Please understand, we haven't shown the site plan. We haven't worked with the city. I haven't done DRT review. I haven't done preliminary submittal meetings with the city. There's a whole host of criteria we do to start the planning process. As a professional courtesy, we haven't taken it anywhere but to the residents first. It's the right way to approach it. It's what the whole system is set up for. To answer someone's question a minute or two ago, the community council is an opinion body. We don't ask for their permission. They don't grant us permission, but they provide the feedback that the decision makers will use in the planning staff, the planning commission, and the city council. Without putting words in Dan's mouth, the city council will weigh all this stuff very, very seriously. So yes, to answer your question, the community council's feedback matters. And it matters so much that it's why we came to you first.
So that is true. This isn't right. So I didn't think so. This isn't an actual like required outreach. This is early in the process. And when we heard that something different might be happening, we asked them to clarify it for us. And so.
And Amy,
so
just
to further that,
if I build what is allowed through code and zone and current condition, I don't have to come to the community council.
So that's true. Let me make that point. Does everyone know where the Ridge is, which is like that huge assisted living building? When you get right off the freeway and come north on Foothill, there's that really tall building that's new. So East Bench Community Council was never notified about that building happening, and it just, as it was getting taller and taller and taller, and the people who lived behind it on Scenic Drive, which I guess they should change the name of their street now because they can't see anymore. Nobody ever told us it was happening, and that's because the way that the zoning was, they could build it that tall and that close to the edge of the property without asking us. It wasn't a special exception. It wasn't a conditional use. It just was, with this zoning, they can build this building this tall. And by rights, the people who own the property right now at Lamplighter, they can build whatever they want in the zoning that matches the zoning. You know what I mean? That's something to consider. That's something to consider. They don't have to ask us. They don't ask us, do you like my building? Do you like my tenants? That kind of stuff. I'm just saying that, like, once the zoning is changed, you can do what the zoning allows. So that's a thing to consider.
And if I may add to that, Amy, I think there was a couple that spoke together a bit ago. I think it was Liz, and they were offended at the suggestions of the Maverick and the Chick-fil-A. I did not mean that in any way, shape, or form to come across as a threatening angle. It's simply those uses are allowed, and we've been approached by those users to go on Lamplighter. And if we can't build what we would look to build with rezone. We'll build what we can build with existing zone and condition. And to be very honest with you, we're going to do it on what's the best, highest and best use for revenue for the partners and the project. And that might not be in keeping with what some people in the community want. Chick-fil-A is interested. It drives me crazy what Chick-fil-A is doing on 2100 South with our circulation because of that drive-through. I hate it. It wasn't meant as a threat. They wanted to go up there. We don't think it's a good fit either. The point is simply, we were showing you what we thought we would like to do here. We get the feedback now. We understand the community's position. We've got to go back to the well and figure this out. But please understand, if we don't require a rezone, you may not see us again. We'll proceed with plans as we see fit under the confines of what we're allowed to do there, and we'll proceed. I don't think that's in the best interest of anybody, including me on the call. That's not our intent, but that's how the system is set up.
Okay, Brooke, you want to say something?
Yes, and this is intended to be an overall positive comment. I kind of took Mark to task in our meeting, our executive council meeting the other day, and I from what I understand and what people have said to me, Mark, I'm not speaking for the community council, I'm speaking for myself. What people have said to me is they really love the idea that you'll come in and you'll do something really cool with this space. I think that is something I personally would love to see. I think the architecture there is awkward, it's past tense. It would be really lovely for you guys to come in and really do something neat with that space. I am personally concerned about traffic along Foothill. There is no way we are going to mitigate traffic on Foothill while also increasing density. And it's just, those two things do not go together. I personally would encourage you guys to do something that creates more of a community, not cramming an apartment building into that teeny space. This is not the place to put a large residential unit. If you guys, I get the number bit, you know, you've got to figure out your cash flow, you've got to figure out how it maximizes the return on the investment for the partners. I totally support that. I think that I would like you to consider maybe instead of having multiple residential units, having like a 2-level professional building or offices or some kind of a WeWork kind of space. You've got all these professionals up in this neighborhood who can work from home and do work from home, but occasionally would like to have a conference room or something like that. That to me is a cool, energetic, neat use of that space. And then you want to have things like a salon and restaurants and the coffee shop and things like that in that space. And I think that shows a really forward-thinking kind of approach to using this space. You also have the automatic traffic flow from people who do come and go from the University of Utah, who would love to have a place like WeWork or some kind of adaptable space in there. I don't think your answer to maximize your revenues has to be a big apartment building. I think you can do something much cooler, that's lower scale, that it probably increases your revenues if you do something that's more on the commercial side. I would like to see you do that, and I would be in full support of something that's on a different scale. I think an apartment building is just the wrong answer for this space. Thanks.
Okay, who's next?
I am. Hello, everyone. So after hearing most of the opinions on this meeting, so this is what I've thought of. It might be a solution, but this is just my take, okay? So what I thought of is that Mr. Mark can build his apartment here, but for those who have whose apartment has blocked his view, he has to pay a certain amount of reimbursement, since I certainly know a couple people who bought houses in the East Bench just for the view. And that's all I have to say. Also, some person in comments said that the polls were inaccurate and wanted to take it again. And yes, that's all I have to say. Thank you. Good night.
Let's do another poll then. Brooke, bring the poll up. Can everybody see it? Hold on just a second. Brooke will pull it up. And we'll see what the answers are. It doesn't, this isn't like
Can you phrase the
or
question?
anything, and it was kind of overwhelming, the response anyway. But let's say question number 1 is, do you support this project as presented tonight? How about that?
Yeah, that's a good way.
Question 1. I'll put it in the chat.
And while we're doing that too, Amy, please understand that 73 out of 100 respondents, and I'm sure there was a bunch of people still trying to respond, that don't want to support the rezone is a very loud message that we're receiving here. We're not ignoring any of it. This is our first time we came to the community, and we get it. I've been in the planning profession for 30 years. I've never seen a project that everybody likes anywhere, ever. When I was a city planner or on the dark side with the development community, as my planner friends keep saying. That's not the point, but I also don't see many projects proceeding that are 73% opposed either. So what we're trying to do is demonstrate that we are trying to do a large investment, a significant investment, and a dramatic change in Lamplighter. And we'll go back, I'll sit down with the owners and we'll talk about the direction that they would like to prefer that we proceed. And we'll come back to the community with further suggestions. Brooke, following your train of thought, completely understood. The idea for us originally is we didn't want all the Lamplighter being a surface parking lot, but the only way to afford parking structure and hiding the parking stalls is with some density. I'm not saying multifamily, it could be office, it could be a whole host of things, but you need density on the land to afford parking structure. So where we're probably heading is more surface stalls, more asphalt, more hardscape. And I think everybody on the call would understand that. It's just, it's a math problem. So we'll go back to the well, we'll decide with the owners how they would like to proceed and whether we're going to proceed with the rezone or whether we'll proceed in different directions. But I can assure you we care an awful lot about what the community thinks.
Okay, Anurag, do you want to speak now?
Hi, yes. So we are also one of the neighbors of the Lamplighter Square. We share a wall with Barbara and with the liquor store and so on. I had a question about the zoning stuff that Mark, you presented, which is you said that maybe you can proceed without rezoning, but if you're going to obtain that single family residence, is there any option where you can proceed without rezoning? You have to rezone, don't you?
Yes, we do. And I don't know that we'll proceed with the house. I don't know yet. And maybe the community just has to understand that there's restricted access direction certain times a day. I know that the DABC won't be happy about that. I know that the Salt Lake City traffic engineers and transportation aren't real enthusiastic about restricting left turn or south movements out of Lamplighter. I don't know where it goes. Like I told all of you on the call, we have not pitched this work through the planning department. We've only been working with transportation, circulation, because of DOT's activity on Foothill, and because we also knew it was a critical path for approval. I saw someone scroll question a minute ago about a traffic study. We've done all the traffic studies. We've hired very capable traffic engineers on this stuff. So we're not taking any of this lightly. We are trying to be incredibly thorough. To answer your question, without a rezone, that house can't be incorporated into the project or built upon.
And I have one other question. As it stands, if you do not rezone, what restrictions do you face in terms of the, for example, heights? in terms of the multi-story buildings that you can build on the CN lots?
Well, it's zone specific. The CB zone, I think off the top of my head, well, you don't require a rezone. You can build higher. I think you can build to 45 feet of height. I know that it's 30 feet standard without any requirement of conditional building or site design review, which is another step of approval process required to pierce that height. And then in the CN, I don't recall off the top of my head, but we can build like or similar circumstance that's there now without any rezone.
Okay, but I mean, I guess my question was, would you need further approvals if you wanted to change the height of the buildings that you would build without, I mean, even without rezoning?
Well,
so you would be able to do, you can replace what is there.
Yes, the rezone is part of the request to get the height.
Yeah.
We can build to the height that's all out there now with all current zones and conditions. Without it, yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, I hope I was answering you correctly.
Okay, the next people to speak are Dustin and then Adam. And everybody, do you remember the meetings in which chats, like for the Salt Lake City School Board, were like taken as official communication? So try to behave in the chats as well. Dustin and then Adam.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, thanks, Amy. I really appreciate the time, and Mark, I really appreciate everything that you've said tonight. I also want to compliment Brooke for saying the office space. I'll buy in today. I need office space. Can't work out of my basement any longer. So I don't know if it's 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever you want. I'm ready to buy some office space in that territory right now. So that's a really good idea, Brooke. Thank you. So my father-in-law is a city and former city planning director for Salt Lake City, and his question to us was about utilities. Have you, in your plan, the short plan that I shared with him, because he's not in the meeting, I had to take pictures via Zoom. He's like, have you talked about just garbage and in general? Loading and unloading of stuff to all these facilities that are in that little space. Like you've got to supply the restaurants and supply the liquor store and supply, and then the garbage. And what does that look like? It adds to the congestion of that little tiny space. And so my question is, have you thought about that, and what does that look like?
Well, you're absolutely right. And it's actually the first exercise we do is, how do you service? How do you circulate? In the multifamily building as presented, all the dumpsters and all the trash chutes and all the circulation of servicing are inside the building. We've started to do that on projects throughout Salt Lake City. I mean just the development community. The liquor store will have its loading dock on the east side of its building. Their trash and the like, that's site plan work that they'll work on specific. The circulation for the servicing of the coffee shop and the retail was all off of a back corridor, and the dumpsters are pulled out, dumped in the mornings, and then pulled back into the building, both for the retailers and for the residential. It's one of the first exercises we do with architects, because it's one of the hardest things. Your power, your landed transformers, locations, and your circulation for dumpster and loading and unloading is the hardest thing we face. So question very well received. I'm glad you think that way. I'm glad your father-in-law does, because we do it on every project we deal with. It was all done internal in that building.
Hey, real quick, Mark. The gas station wasn't previously part of this project. I mean, when I say previously, the last time we heard about it, but now it is. Is there there's underground storage tanks for gas there. Are they leaking, or have you done environmental studies or anything?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the state, we just did a huge drill. I think, I'm absolutely certain that the neighbors saw the drilling rigs. We have test pits, monitoring pits drilled on the surroundings of it. We're monitoring it very closely. We didn't discover any active leaks currently. We have phase 1 soils reports. We have our environmental studies. It will require a cleanup, Amy, for sure.
Okay.
Previous user and the time that it's been in the soil. And it's actually a state fund that's provided for that. So that's ongoing. It's being monitored for all the right reasons.
Is it leaking? Because I know there's there's a group that handles underground storage tanks and leaking underground storage tanks. Is it in one of those two categories?
I do not know that it's leaking, Amy, to be very frank with you. I am not certain. I don't think it is. If it is, I would be surprised that the state and the monitoring that's going on right now would allow for it to continue to operate. Generally, they close it and clean them up if they're leaking. They don't allow them to continue leaking. So that would surprise me. That doesn't mean that it hasn't in the past. I would have to go back and review those studies. I'm more on the planner side of the layout and design, and I haven't been into the science side of that, but we can find out for you.
Okay, Adam, you're up, and then Bruce Cohn, you're up after that.
Hello. So Mark, I understand you have a job to do, and I get that a lot of people came at you with some frustration. And I hope you're actually really just hearing us instead of seeing dollar signs. It's really not questions, it's a statement. My biggest thing I wanted to ask you and the people that you're working with is I'd like for you to take a step outside of your neighborhood and you let us know after you and everyone else you're working with would be okay with a tremendous amount of traffic, people that are blocking your way, and just a much more chaotic neighborhood that's going to disrupt your neighborhood. That's the biggest thing I would like for you to really please just think about. I know you have a job to do and people are just coming at you, and I get the frustration, but that's one thing I really would like for you to just please take in consideration from this meeting. And I appreciate your time on this meeting. You're here to hear us. I appreciate that. But then also I'm actually going to just take Katie Short's comments because I don't want to plagiarize this, but the subtle threatening context is not okay. Please hear us out. That's all we're asking. Just please hear us out. This is our neighborhood. You do not live here. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Adam. Or Craig, whoever was talking. The computer says computer says Adam, so that's what I'm calling you.
You have a job to do to just please hear me out. So thank you.
Yeah. Actually, one of the principals does live in the East Bench Community Council. Just throwing that out there. Let's see, Bruce, you're up next, and then we're going to hear from Scott Alder.
First of all, Mark, I want to say thank you. If you had been the presenter 12 years ago, maybe Walmart would have been able to expand, and maybe Foothill Apartments would have been able to expand, but they didn't. The Community Council rose up en masse and stopped Walmart, which is a little larger than your people, and stopped the Foothill Apartments from going higher. People live on the East Bench partly for the view, partly for the security, and frankly, building a large apartment house deteriorates both the safety and the view that people have paid a lot of money for, and that's not appropriate. And while you can do what the zoning will let you do, you will have a fight on your hands from the Community Council all the way, unless you revise your plan significantly, come back to the Community Council with revisions. You have done a remarkably good job of presentation tonight, but that's not going to change very many minds. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask another question on our question form. Brooke's going to put up another question. And the question is, do you want a rezone? Now, there's a single family house that's right across the street from Ricardo's house. It's just a home. It looks like a home. It is a home. It's right next to the Skyline Inn. And that's the one that they're under contract to purchase and rezone it from residential to commercial. So do you want a rezone of the residential property?
Oh, please say no.
On 1700 South. So when Brooke shares this, it pops up on your screen. This is question number 2. Do you want a rezone of the residential property on 1700 South? Say yes if you do and say no if you don't. This is a question that they asked us a long time ago because it seemed like it was part of what the liquor store needed. And 2 years ago in September of 2018, the executive board said, no, we don't want a rezone of that property. We want it to stay residential. And at the time, Charlie Luke was our city council person, and he said that the city has no appetite for changing residential parcels to commercial, and that may have changed. The city council is almost completely new. I'm not sure what the appetite is right now, but say you vote right now if you want a rezone of the residential property. That's question number 2. So vote real quick on that. What I'm hearing is that the height that the lamplighter that could go to right now without rezoning is 25 feet or 30 feet. And that's not actually like 25 feet off the ground. It depends on like the average grading or existing grading or proposed grading or something like that, which is really complex in our neighborhood because we have hills. So it's like 25 or 30 feet, which is high or not high. Scott, you're up now. Everyone vote in the poll and let's listen to Scott.
Thank you, Amy. I guess I would say I definitely don't want it. We own the house next door to the proposed house that they plan on tearing down. And to have a driveway with it looks like to be a 10-foot fence next to it is really overwhelming to just picture not having any view out, no light, anything like that. But my biggest concern actually is just the traffic coming out to 17 South. Trying to hang a, I guess, would be a right to go out onto 17 South would be back everybody all the way up that street. We live there with people already coming down that street way too fast, and it's already quite difficult with all the retail around there right now that are parking all along 1700 South, and I know Skyline as well. So I guess, you know, Mark, we lived there, and we definitely got sick of having the motel and a lot of the problems there, and we're excited to see that go away and to have Lamplighter kind of rebuilt, because we really would love to have something that's a little bit more towards the community where you could walk down and have some good meals and have some places to meet and recreate. But I feel like this is going beyond what the community needs, and it's just going to add more stress to an already, I guess, troubled community. So I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you taking your time. But I guess, Mark, that would be my one question to you is, how big is that wall that you plan from the pictures looking in? Will that be along the house right there? And I'll hang up.
Don't hang up, Scott. You can't get back on if you go away. So.
Thank you, Scott. You know, this is rendering work and not survey with, you know, all our different elevations and shots and stuff. It's a retaining wall. The idea is we were going to put a sidewalk and a tree-lined kind of pedestrian way on the east side of that, adjacent to your house. Try and, you know, provide as much shade and cover from the adjacency as we could. We're not far enough into any of the design for all the obvious reasons to be able to accurately answer that question. I'd just be kind of pulling it out of my back pocket. But it wasn't planned to be very big. It's just grade change.
But that is where the trucks have to come in to deliver. That driveway is where the trucks have to come in to pick up the garbage, deliver to the liquor store, all that,
no,
right?
The truck route is off of Foothill, and the servicing for the dumpsters and everything is down off the edge of the retail on the north side of the building.
On Foothill?
Obviously, you know, everybody on the call knows that we're going to have to go back to some pretty dramatic positioning on design here. So, you know, I'm not sure how that's all going to shake out. The idea is it gives a safe passage out to the light to go southbound and through the light rather than that meander across Foothill. It wasn't meant as a truck route.
Okay. Well, and Mark, you already do kind of own a curb cut on 1700 South to get into Skyline. It kind of parallels where you can come out of the car wash, right? You already have a curb cut to the parking lot at Skyline in right now.
And we'll be using that in the future, Amy, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anybody else want to say anything that you don't think has already been communicated? I think the last poll about do you want rezoning of the residents on 1700 South, that was like, what, 19% say they are fine with the rezoning? And is that right, Brooke? Is that the right math? 19% said they were fine with the rezoning.
Right, and 81% against. We had 88 people. Well, yeah, 88 people vote.
Well, that's everyone who's on the call. So there you go.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say. We had 88 people on the call at the time.
Okay, there you go.
79%.
Does anybody have
voted.
any other thing? And a thing I want to point out is, thank you for coming to this meeting and saying what you care about and what you think about. And please come to our meetings because they're always this fun and exciting. Except Mark probably will never come again because maybe it hasn't been that fun or exciting. But anyway, if the point was hearing what people think, then you have heard what people think. I think.
But let me shadow that, Amy, and thank all of you. This is important for land use policy in our cities. It's a public process. I studied it and was educated in it in college, and I believed in the public process. I wish I could say the gray hair is from sun. It's not. It's from these hearings. It's not easy, but I have so much respect for people being passionate about the community they live in. And I don't take personal offense to it. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mark.
Amy, would you give a little preview of the tree discussion just briefly so the people who are here know what you meant earlier? And Mark, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it
Thank
too.
you, Brooke. I'm going to bug out, guys.
Goodbye, Mark. Keep in touch. Yeah, the tree discussion. We have, as we've discussed, our neighborhood, lots of us live here because of the great views. And maybe if you just moved here recently, you've never had a view because of the trees that are in a neighbor's yard or something like that. Or maybe if you've lived here a long time, the trees have gotten big enough that you no longer have a view. And we want to figure out a way to talk about that where everyone can take care of their trees, keep them safe and healthy, because that we were lucky, I think, that downslope wind didn't knock all of the trees into all of our houses. I think that was just lucky, but we may not be so lucky next time. It's a safety issue. It's a good neighbor issue. What can we do about it? That's kind of the discussion that we want to have at some point. So start thinking about how to have conversations with your neighbor about tough things like that, like saying your trees are now driving us nuts. How can we fix this? And also considering, look around in your own yard and say, what trees do I have that are ruining somebody else's view or are unhealthy because they're too big? And how can we be good neighbors to each other by preserving views? We know they're a big deal. We'll chew people out if they're going to build a motel to block our views. But we also need to pay attention to, if you planted a tree 20 years ago that's now a huge tree and somebody can't see, you need to be on the hook for that as well. We'll talk about it. It's safety and views. How about that? The trees that are so big that when they fall down, they could crush your house. They are definitely ruining people's views, which is a reason why we like to live up here. And maybe you don't even know if you have a good view because your neighbors have outrageously tall trees. Okay, thanks you guys. Our next meeting, send an email to me if you don't usually get our updates and I'll send you them. We're gonna have new meetings in January where we'll talk about everything. The third Wednesday of the month is when we meet. Next meeting's in January on the 20th. Thanks, you guys. I hope everyone got their chance to say what they want to.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you
Nice
very
job.
much. This has been great.
Thanks, guys.
Amy,
Nice
thank
job,
you.
Amy.
Good evening.
Thanks,
Bye-bye. Have a
everybody.
good holiday.
You
Bye.
too.
Thank
Everybody,
you for
see you
amazing
next year.
neighbors.
Appreciate it.
Amazing.
Wear your mask. That's a good point.